I love the idea of getting applauded for just coming up and saying hello. Hello, my name's Nicola Strong. I'm from Strong Enterprises, and I have the wonderful job, really, I'm so looking forward to this session. You have chosen well on success in conversational AI. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 speakers. They'll speak for about 12 minutes each. We won't have time for questions in that 12 minutes. What we will do is suggest that you have opportunity after the session. So I'll ask each of them to come up and individually and give their talk, and let's see what they have to say. So the first person that I would like to invite to the stage is Duncan Anderson.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I should say. My name is Duncan Anderson. I run a company called Humanise.AI. I'm the former European CTO for IBM Watson. We set up Humanise.AI. We built what we call a communications platform, which happens to have some AI communications in it. But it's not all we do. We do lots of things, and we've specialized that platform into the hospitality market, so hotels, accommodation suppliers, etc. So what I'm going to do is talk about how I've seen success in that marketplace, and particularly I'm going to give you some examples to show you, to illustrate some of the things that I think are important to success. So we define... Something went wrong with my emojis. That's what happens if you write charts in Keynote and convert them to PowerPoint. So we define success in our marketplace as how many people engage with an AI assistant, and we're getting 65% of people staying in hotels that have our software using our system. So 65% is pretty high. And 10% of those people are actually purchasing upgrades in the hotel. So that's what is a business success metric for us. And we define that success as being having several attributes. The first is having an AI. The second is having humans. So we're big on the fact that an AI system cannot support customers on its own. We need humans in the loop as well, and how they interact together is really important. And we need task and workflow management in the hotel as well, because it's not just about humans taking over from the AI, it's about generating works for people to do, and then that work happens asynchronously from a conversation. And then thirdly, it's all about integrating with the systems in the hotel. So you can actually do things, it's not about just having a conversation. Poor emojis again. I can tell you I'm going to be blighted by emojis here. So the first example is a conversation where somebody has been making a reservation in the hotel. When a reservation arrives in the hotel, we get notified about it, and then we start chatting with the guest. So this is the conversation that we're having. We're saying, hey, we can see your reservation. We don't seem to have your email address. Could you share it with us? So we're gathering information about the guest. And here we're saying, we would like to know a little bit about you, what kind of things are you interested in? And we ask that because if we understand who the guest is, then we can personalize the conversation later on. So that's the first part of what we're doing. The second part is actually making money for a hotel, because that's the purpose. Hotels really only buy things if you can make money for them. So we help to make money. One of the things we do there is we say, here's some things you might be interested in buying from us. Would you like to buy an early check-in or a late checkout, for example? These are real conversations, by the way. These are not faked up. These are actual customer conversations where somebody says, yes, I'd like to buy a late checkout. And we say, that's £20. And they say, yes, I'd like to buy one of those. And then we say, that's fantastic. As it happens, you cannot automatically sell a late checkout because there's a lot of juggling around workload in the hotel. So somebody in the hotel needs to make a human decision. And at this point, we generate a task for somebody in the hotel to make that decision. And they go away and make their decision, and then they press a button in our console, and that sends a message back to the guest to say if their request has been approved or not. So that's where the integration between the AI and the humans is really super important. Now, this is going to be a fun one. This is when the AI has a bit of a trouble. So we had a guest who had ants in their room. She starts off this conversation by saying, when I checked in and got into room 304, I found more than 20 live ants on the floor, kitchen, fridge. I walked down to receptionist and asked for help, and look, as a witness, she saw that and felt so embarrassed. So you can tell this is not going to be a great conversation. She carries on. They claimed that no rooms for me to change and claimed your manager said will reimburse first night of stay for me. Your staff also claimed will try their best to change another room for me because I booked for a week. How to stay in a room with a lot of ants. A staff sprays once in my room, and I also use another bottle to spray my room. Most of ants have been killed, and some ran away. I should say, I've broken this conversation up. This guest actually entered all of this as one message to our boss. When I woke up for a walk on the next day, that manager in reception promised me to change another room for me and asked me come back after 1 o'clock because they needed to arrange another room for me. Seems reasonable. But when I backed to hotel at 2:30, that male manager, you have to watch out for the male managers, said there are no more live ants in room 304, but only dead bodies of ants, which is okay for me to stay. I told him he made a promise to me in the morning, but now he claimed only dead bodies of ants, which is no need to change another room for the coming 6 nights. I truly disappointed what he said and how he broke his promise. I found ants again when I got back to my room yesterday night, as your female hotel staff also saw. She said we'll contact your female manager. See, I think the females are better at dealing with ants than the males. I used dishes washer to clean up table, kitchen and floor right away. The main point is I found 2 more live ants in my room this morning. I need to clean up the room floor. Once again, room 304 is a home of ants because they know the way to return their home. I would like to get your reply, ASAP. What do you think our bot makes of that? I can tell you I had not spent much time training it about ant infestations. I work best with shorter questions. Maybe try summarising. Or maybe I could get a member of staff to help. So, funnily enough, it's actually the perfect answer, because if I had spent a lot of time trying to work out how to respond to ant infestations, we would almost certainly have had a stupid conversation. We would have wound up the guest, and it would have gone downhill rapidly. So actually we did exactly the right thing to say, I can't really cope with this. I need a member of staff, which is, again, why humans are really super important. Yes, okay, this is an interesting one. I want sex. We don't get much of this, but we do get some of it. To which our bot says, I don't think I should answer that. But this person will not be deterred. I want sex with Charlie. I don't know who Charlie is. That seems a little inappropriate. So you get some very weird stuff happening with hotel bots. And really, it's about containing that kind of stuff. And so we have taught our system about lots of inappropriate things that happen in hotels. And it does a reasonably good job. Sometimes great things happen when you get humans involved. And so here's a conversation where somebody has made a mess of making a reservation. And actually, our bot has handed over to a member of staff at this point. So this is a conversation not with our bots at this point, but with the member of staff, where the member of staff is solving the problem. And actually, at the end of the conversation, we've got a really happy guest, because they recognise they've made a mess of things, and our system has solved the problem. And if you think of the system as being a combination of AI and staff, and using AI at the right point and using staff at the right point, that's the right way to think of it. And so early on, our AI recognised that this was something that needed a member of staff, and it bailed out, which was exactly the right decision. Sometimes you get basically evil people. Live alone, creepy robot. Okay, I can find a real human if you'd like. It's kind of chirpy, isn't it, in response to not the nicest comment? No. So I don't know what's going on here. Okay, no problem. So you can see maybe the chirpiness isn't quite appropriate to the input, but it kind of makes sense. We like to think our system is uplifting, even in the face of adversity. This is another one that's, you don't get many of these. My girlfriend, now ex, is on her way escorted by police. It's not any big deal. She refused to leave my flat after breakup, and we had to have her removed. Did she get in okay? I can get a member of staff to help if you like. So you can see we start at the beginning where our AI is in control of the conversation and it's providing a lot of value of itself because it's driving a conversation and it's actually collecting information about the guest and then it's selling things. And then we have these examples where the AI says, I shouldn't handle this. I should get a member of staff. And we really believe this combination is the key. And so if we think of success as being AI plus humans, plus workflow task management for those examples where something needs to happen offline, like looking to see whether we can get a late checkout or not for this guest, plus integration with systems so that we can, when we collect, for example, the email address, we actually put that into the CRM system. So this is an interactive, this isn't a chatbot, we have a nice fluffy conversation. This is a chatbot that actually achieves a purpose and integrates with systems and executes transactions on the behalf of a user. And that's what we feel is a successful system and how we get that high level of engagement and how we get to actually sell things and make stuff happen. So that's my view of success for chatbots. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now my next presenter is looking at that in a very different way. So I'd like to invite to the stage Akemi Tsunagawa.
Hi everyone, my name is Akemi. I do have a little long, complicated last name that everyone gets wrong. I'm from a company called Bespoke, and this is a company I started about 4 years ago in Japan. So number of tourists visiting, foreign tourists visiting to Japan literally tripled over the last few years, maybe 6 years or so. But in Japan, not many people speak Japanese, English or Chinese to support those foreign tourists. So what we do is to automate some of the communications between places like hotels, airports, train stations with those like foreign travelers. You ask very simple questions, for instance, like best way to get to X, and then our chatbot answers. And then right now in Japan, 1 in every 4 foreign tourists uses our service. And here's like how it works. A lot of those places, airports, stations, hotels, you see like all these like, flyers and like signages and all that stuff that not many people scan. But once you connect to, for instance, like a public Wi-Fi at the airport, our chat window just pops up. So there's no additional download. You don't need to download anything. At the same time, you don't get to choose. So it just pops up, and then it starts asking you questions. But then today, I'm going to share some of the mistakes that we've made and how we fixed those mistakes. our user literally went from like no user to like over 10 million users in like a very short amount of time. So the first step we did, of course, like we made a chatbot that kind of works. Then like we were very happy with it, but nobody was really using it because you're not gonna be actively trying to look for flyer or QR code to scan, right? So what we did was like put our service on public Wi-Fi. So as soon as you agree to terms and use, then our chat window pops up. And then there, we started getting a lot of people accessing our chatbot. But then the next problem was, nobody really was like chatting. They see the window, but they leave immediately. So we started like looking deep into it and realized the most important thing actually isn't really to make a chatbot that works or to promote the service, but it's more about designing the conversation. Oh, I think my emojis are also turning into something else that I don't remember. But here are like some of the stats that I would like to share. So in the beginning, what we did at the airport, the initial message, we call it welcome message. We had it something like, welcome to Japan, how can I help you today? It was too vague. We placed some buttons, but it was too vague, so not many people were interacting with our chatbots. So we looked into what people were actually, sending us. Like we looked into like a chat history and learned that like majority of our users were asking about flight information. So we rewrote the message to be something like, welcome to Narita Airport, and I'm your travel buddy. Do you need flight information? And then only 2 buttons, yes or no. Then initial engagement literally went up by like 3 times. Then next thing we tried, this is like, I think, an example from one of the hotels that we service. Left side, we had like very long answer. Probably to process this, it would probably take you like, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds to, figure what it is. So we rewrote it to like something else that's much, much shorter, and then also placed buttons for the type of questions that the people would normally ask as like follow-up questions. Then this also increased our engagement a lot higher. So more people started to like continue to chat instead of just leaving immediately. Then my emojis are gone again. But next thing we did, the most important part is still there. This is my favorite one. So left side, the avatar is the robot icon. So it's called Bbot, and it's the robot icon. And then right side, it's very small, but it's a human face. And that's my sister's face. My sister has an anime face, so I decided to use it for our service. And we ran it for a bit, and then more people were like continuing to like chat. But then the only problem I had was the people started asking weird questions, like, do you have a boyfriend? And can we go on dates? And my sister, of course, didn't know about that. And then she told me, like last few weeks, I'm like walking on the street, some random foreigners, like foreign tourists, like want to just take pictures with me. I'm like, I think you're becoming popular. So as soon as she said that, we decided to take it down. So our engagement went down, but it was still okay. Then we needed to try more things, right? Because it went down. So next thing we did, we started testing like the wording on buttons. So wording on buttons seems like very small change, but actually it made massive difference. And this is like one of the big like failures that we had. So we changed it from no to something a little bit vague, like later. Then the engagement dropped significantly. So we changed it back. And next thing we tried, as soon as like we started getting a lot of requests, like incoming messages from many foreign tourists, we had enough data. So we started populating relevant suggestions as buttons. That way people don't have to think, they just continue to chat by clicking on buttons. So this is like big, this worked very well. And then I think it was around like 42% success. Then we looked deeper into some of the conversation, like requests that we've been receiving, especially for hotel clients. And then these are the actual examples. So for instance, when people ask a lot of the same thing, like, is your swimming pool open yet? So that could actually translate into something like, your pool isn't open early enough. You might want to, instead of waiting until July, you might want to open it up like a little bit sooner. If a lot of the guests are asking the same question, there's actually a translation for something else. And it could be a sales opportunity for some of the clients. And another example, my favorite one, was, do I have to be a member to book? And that probably means your website is not so easy to navigate, so I might as well just book on Expedia. So a lot of these things we share with the clients. Then, I think the slides got a little strange. This is another one. These are like other things that we do. As we started getting like a lot more data, we started analyzing more. And for instance, if a hotel guest sends something like, oh, I'm tired, I'm jet lagged, then we start recommending like hotel spa. There's a great spa on the second floor that you might want to try, for instance. And if people go like hungry, then we recommend a restaurant inside the hotel. So basically defining triggers, like keywords, then recommend something else as like additional services to help clients sell more. And an airport could be something like airport transfer to sell, or it could be sending people to gift shops. Say, have you been able to get all of the stuff that you needed? So all these things that we do, the most important thing wasn't really the technology part. I think it was more about making users happy, so our clients are also happy. And then this is the actual, I think, TripAdvisor review. One of our users left on the hotel page. And then by collecting more reviews for hotel clients, they get more booking, maybe direct booking, and then that makes our clients happier. And this is the last one, and then no emoji.
Awesome. They're absolutely awesome. And yet there are another 2 to go. So yes, I'd now like to introduce to you Aakrit Vaish. Yes? Okay. Yes.
All right, there we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Aakrit Vaish. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Haptik. Thank you so much for having me over here. We're all mostly headquartered out of India. What today I'm going to go over is less about actually chatbots, but a little bit more about us. I think the team wanted us to share a little bit about our journey, which has been fairly eventful over the last 5 years. We started out, with this vision and mission in 2013. Vision was to build the world's largest conversational AI assistant company, and the mission, which sounded quite fancy at that time, was to enable this shift from clicks to interactions. This was really a very large sort of macro thesis that we started out with. We've gone through a lot over the last 5.5 years, it's from August 2013 till pretty much now. We've done a combination of products and solutions and businesses over these years. For much like any other typical startup, we've over-abused the pivot over these years, and I'll go into just sort of year by year how we approached this problem. So this is first year of our operation. So we started out saying that, look, we want to build like a conversational assistant company. How do we do that? So we basically built a direct-to-consumer mobile app. We called it the Haptik Customer Service Desk. What you would do with this is you would download an app from the iOS or the Google Play Store, and you would basically try and get customer service queries addressed. Our eventual goal of this was to actually get brands and enterprises on board and create a marketplace so that people could simply send in their query, whether it is related to an airline, whether it is related to a bank, and then the actual end customer would be on this marketplace servicing these queries. It was all human, no AI, so we actually had a number of agents that we would staff, and then of course as we would take it to third-party brands on the marketplace, they would put actually their own agents online. It was all chat, no voice. We raised some seed investment back then to get this going. 1 year later, pivot number one, we basically said, look, this customer service marketplace is not working, brands are not coming online, frequency of usage is not as high. So for any direct-to-consumer product, one of the things you want is people should be using it often enough. Turned out people don't have customer service queries as often as we think they do. So we pivoted to say that, look, let's build a concierge, right? Can we basically build something which people can use more frequently? They can request things like, set me a reminder. They can request things like, can you help me web check-in? And the idea was that, look, now here we can take AI, automation, automate a bunch of stuff, and then hopefully over a period of time, figure out some way to make money. Switch to 1 year later. This is like a half pivot, not a full pivot, right? But basically saying that, okay, look, now people are doing a bunch of concierge type stuff. Now how do we make money? Let's introduce e-commerce, right? So we basically went down the route and saying, look, instead of just people requesting reminders and web check-in, why don't we help them order food? Why don't we help them book flights? So we went into this route of trying to basically get people to essentially do a number of the day-to-day transactions on this sort of mobile app. We called it a super app. So back in Asia, this whole concept of super apps is pretty popular. The most notable, of course, being WeChat out in China. So we said, look, we're going to go down this WeChat route, try and get people to do the day-to-day transactions on this personal assistant is what we called it now. The good part, and you'll find out over the next few slides, is that for whatever reason, and hopefully there's not many VCs over here, for whatever reason, people kept believing in this thing, so we keep getting more money. So we raised another 11 million at this point, which was on this whole idea that we're going to build this WeChat of India. Next year, this is now 2016-17, I call this Haptik a little bit of everything, because I think we were doing a little bit of everything. Because clearly, for different reasons altogether, this whole super app concept did not work. We thought that the whole idea of being able to do things over chat would be great. Turns out that it was not really chat that was the problem. The challenge was that when you're trying to build so many different services in one app, you cannot be good at all of them, right? So for food delivery, there's one particular app or service that will do a lot better than trying to be an aggregator. So anyway, so what we did, this is now 2 years back. What we did 2 years back is that we basically went into this route of, trying to do a number of things. So we had our super app that was running. So there was one team. We said, look, there's a bunch of technology we built out over these last 3 years, which helps in automating bot interactions. So why don't we start licensing it out to enterprises and go down the B2B route? So we started doing that. On our super app, we actually introduced an ad platform. So we're trying to monetize that through ads as well. So this year, when it came to conversational AI, we were doing literally everything. We were doing conversational AI for direct-to-consumer. We were doing conversational AI for enterprise. And we were doing conversational AI for advertisers and marketers. A lot of fun, by the way. This was a little bit of everything. Finally, it took us only 4 years to find product market fit. And fortunately, we survived all this time. And eventually, out of all these things that we were doing, we found product market fit in our licensing for enterprises and helping them solve customer service queries. A lot of people are very familiar with this, and ultimately, this is where a lot of the entire conversational AI industry is moving towards, where we basically, what we do is, we have the entire technology platform. We license this out to brands and enterprises who use our SDKs or plugins into third-party platforms to try and automate customer service queries. I'd like to call this the SAP of conversational AI platforms, and the only reason to do that is because think of it like having a fairly large horizontal feature set in terms of technology, modules, pre-built templates, and you can really customize it as much as you like. So it could, it's meant for the large enterprise. You can come in, you can rip it apart, you can pick certain modules. This is basically all of the effort that went into over the last 4 years that finally got over here. So where are we at today is really the question, right? So out of all of this, sort of ups and downs, twists and turns, we ended up 2019, this is where we are. We've processed about 2 billion interactions through our platform. About half of these have come through the direct-to-consumer sort of mobile apps and products, and about half of these have come through our enterprise integrations. We reach about 100 million end users on a monthly basis. About 30% of these come from, again, our consumer apps, and 70% of these come from our enterprise integrations. And over this period, we've actually ended up building 124 odd live applications. Again, most of these are now our enterprise integrations. These are our current customers, which is finally making the business actually work. So Coke, KFC, Samsung, you'll find a lot of Indian customers over here because our business predominantly was India up until last year. Finally, all of this, like I said, so for some reason we keep getting money. So all of this ended up in about 2 months back, Reliance Jio, which is, I'm hoping people know them, Reliance Jio, which is India's largest operator, and led a $100 million strategic investment into the company about 2 months back. Now this is what we are. So this is what we're trying to do moving forward. We basically have what we like to call a full stack conversational AI platform, text, voice, multilingual. So one of the things is, as we're focusing on, the next billion users to come online, particularly in the India market, multilingual is very important. India, there's English, of course, that's a spoken language, but along with that, there's 25 other languages that get spoken in India. So for us, being able to do multilingual, particularly in the Indian context, becomes extremely important. We've built, out of all these things that you see over here, pretty much everything has been built in-house, right from our dialogue builder. We have our own agent chat interface. I completely agree with the previous speakers that AI cannot solve every query end-to-end. It has to route to a human agent. We have our own analytics dashboard. The human plus AI concept actually also goes into the fact that we have about a 60% AI trainer team. So this is the team that basically tags data, labels data, sets up workflows. We think that's a very important component of actually the platform. This is really how we look at it now. So, going back and thinking about what we want to do moving forward, we think of our sort of mandate as fairly large in terms of, the areas that we want to focus on. And the way we look at it is that as you think about conversational AI, you have a number of different channels, which actually chat or voice bots can go out to. So obviously devices is something that's becoming very relevant over the last few years. Today we heard about Alexa or Google Home, but then there's a lot of other new devices coming to market. So how can you build conversational voice-first technology across multiple hardware touch points? First party is, of course, apps and websites where bots could be built. And third party is, again, particularly in the emerging markets like India and Asia, a platform like WhatsApp becomes extremely important. It's by far the most used app on the messaging circuit in India. So how we can build on these third-party platforms becomes extremely important. Customer support or service is sort of one use case that we do really well. We're going to explore some more use cases with some of our customers, particularly the idea of being able to do conversational commerce, which is being able to provide a shopping assistant for e-commerce companies. And this is all the stuff we do on the platform side. Like I mentioned, like I mentioned, we have the bot builder, the agent chat. 26 languages is what we're trying to build out. So India officially recognizes on the constitution, I think about 30 plus languages. Our idea is to try and see if we can build, NLP or NLU in about 26 of them. And a lot of other fancy stuff that's going on. Finally, this is really where we come from. This is really where Haptik really finds its inherent motivation from, which is that the last 250 million people who came online, skipped sort of the desktop and went straight to the smartphone. And that's mostly from, again, an India context, right? We have this thesis that the next billion people who will come online might even skip the traditional graphical interface and go straight to conversation. And this particularly applies, like I said, to the emerging market where the traditional interface does not make for easy usage, especially in all the different languages that we're talking about. About us, just making sure it all ties in still. This was more for me than anybody else, that look, everything is still tying in. Our aim is still to build the world's largest conversational AI assistant company, about 125 people, 5 offices. Looking forward to work with everybody. Thank you so much.
It really doesn't stop there. The last of, or certainly the fourth person in our very international team is Kunze, and I'd like to invite you to the stage now.
Almost, Kunze. We'll get there. To choose your own adventure. Okay, so yes, I'm Kunze. I'm the CEO of Pandorabots. Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to talk about failure in conversational AI because there's a lot more content and comedy, but they told me to stay on theme. So I'm going to talk today about a bot on our platform that is processing around 100 million messages a day. And I'm going to tell you how we built it and how you can also do the same. So a bit about Pandorabots. Pandorabots is the largest chatbot development and hosting platform in the world by the numbers. We add about 3,000 to 5,000 developers to the platform every month for a quarter of over 250,000 registered developers, a quarter of a million. They've built over 325,000 chatbots for a variety of different verticals, and we've processed over 60 billion messages between bots hosted on our platform and human end users. So we have a free self-service platform with a number of different features that allow anybody to sign up and easily deploy a bot on a variety of different popular voice and messaging channels. And we also have a professional services department that works with some of the largest brands in the world to build conversational AI applications, companies like Coca-Cola and Toyota. So today I'm going to talk specifically about a bot that we built for the largest door-to-door delivery company in Japan, Yamato Transport. Could you push play on the video inside the phone back there? It's a button you have to push. Well, we'll see if they can do it. But this is a bot that's processing around 100 million messages a day. It's saving the company millions in monthly. And in Japan, as you can ask Akemi if I'm telling the truth later, it is commonly known as the God bot because it just works. So basically the goal is to let customers track packages and update delivery time and location in real time. Which has unlocked a massive, oh, there goes the video, great. And it also, at this point in time, we are now pushing messages out to users to let them know their package is out in delivery, so we're integrated with their real-time logistics platform, so trucks can actually reroute if somebody is not at home. So I'm gonna break down for you how we actually got here and built a bot like this. And I loved Duncan's example earlier because what I've always said is that bots for customer service tend to fail or don't really work for 2 reasons. And the first reason is that when something goes wrong, people tell a really long story about everything terrible that happened to them, like about the ants. That was a very long story. It's usually 4 to 5 sentences, but if someone's really angry, it's much longer. And bot technology actually can't parse anything other than short answers. But the real reason is that if something bad has happened to somebody, a bot is going, and they're already angry, a bot is going to make them angrier about 100% of the time. Really good customer service relies on you feeling like somebody made an exception for you. We call it the exception principle, and moved a mountain to fix your problem. This bot works so well because we're getting to people with messaging before they even have a problem. So that's where the savings really come into play. So I used to walk around saying that before you decide to build a chatbot, you need to make sure that it's solving a real business problem. But that's actually not enough. You have to make sure that conversation is the right tool for whatever job your customer needs to get done. So this is a famous framework from Harvard Business School, which I did not attend, but you can buy the books for much cheaper than tuition. And the classic example is that people don't want a quarter-inch hole, they want a drill. Or they don't want a drill, they want a quarter-inch hole, sorry. Jet lag, San Francisco. So basically, you have to make sure that conversation is the right tool for your customer. It's not the right tool in some cases, it will actually slow them down. Once you've identified that conversation is the right tool, you have to figure out where you're going to meet your customer. We had a lot of customers who, noticed the statistics around smart speaker adoption. Right now, over 50% of households in the U.S. have a smart speaker. So a lot of brands rushed and said, well, we have to have an Alexa skill. But the reality is that if your customers aren't already on a channel and you haven't done the research to validate that, nobody's actually going to talk to your bot. So in the Yamato Transport example, on Line Messenger, which is the most popular messaging platform in Japan, we actually had a request from customers to be able to use the messaging platform to track packages. And then once you know where you're going to launch, you have to know what success will look like. So what are your KPIs up front and how are you going to measure them? This is what a typical project roadmap looks like for a chatbot development project. And the key thing to notice here is that the initial development timeline is only about 1 to 3 months. And the reason for this is because you don't actually know, even if you have a ton of historical data about what customers will say to your brand, what people will say in production. So it's very, very important to launch quickly and iterate rapidly. And it's just a good way to do an agile development process. So in the package tracking bot example, we released it with just one feature to start with, letting customers find out where their package was. And then the next month you release another feature, letting them update the delivery window, and so forth. This is what a typical team looks like. The turnkey solution for chatbot development is actually a myth. It's an extremely cross-functional team within the enterprise and the vendor side. You need copywriters and conversation designers who will actually script the conversation. It turns out that people with a humanities background are actually much better at understanding natural language than both computers and engineers. If it's a big brand, you often need legal. Thank you. Somebody got that joke. One laugh. You need legal to approve all of the copy to make sure that it's brand appropriate. And you often have the marketing team involved for the post-launch plan and a whole bunch of different resources. So it's very important to resource appropriately. And then most successful bots will integrate with a back-end system in order to retrieve real-time data. So how do you actually design a conversation? This is a classic example of what I like to think of as bad design. On the right is a TV guide from the 1960s, and on the left is what it looks like today. And what they basically did is they lifted an existing paradigm into something completely new without making any changes or taking advantage of the medium. And we see this happening today in chatbot design a lot, where companies are trying to lift, their website and recreate it conversationally with a bunch of different buttons. And that's actually not how conversation works. It's a completely new paradigm with different design considerations. So we get this question, we've got our team together, we've got our roadmap, and now we need to actually start building. Can't we, if we have a lot of data, take all of our call center logs, live chats, emails, employee training manuals, and dump them into a big data blender and push the machine learning button, and out comes a perfectly conversational chatbot? Unfortunately, this big data blender isn't real. It's a thing that I made up, and it doesn't exist. The problem with conversational AI today is really that it is an unsolved problem. And the industry suffers from what's known as silver bulletism, which is latching onto the idea that the latest techniques are the be-all, end-all breakthroughs. So big data, and specifically deep learning and neural nets, have led to major breakthroughs in historically hard AI problems like image recognition and speech recognition, but they haven't actually fully worked for conversational AI. So that's why most production systems today are actually a hybrid of rules and machine learning systems. Rules are necessary to make sure that the bot doesn't go off topic and turn into like a famous Microsoft Tay situation where the bot, learned on a diet of tweets unsupervised and turned into a Hitler-loving sex robot very quickly. So I already said this once, I can say it a few more times today. Really updating your bot after it's live with real customer data is the key to success, and most of the work in conversational AI happens after you launch. Great bots share a number of different features. They let the user drive the conversation. They function within a network, and they talk to each other. They're modular. They can also accomplish their own goals. They understand language, and they keep context. So this is an example from our website of a sales chatbot that lets a user wander off topic, because as we saw earlier in Duncan's talk, oftentimes people will text, "I want sex." Luckily, you haven't seen the 60 billion logs that we have, so we've only dealt with a few incidents, but I can tell you about 30% of all inputs are off-topic or inappropriate. So we get this question, we can skip some of these networked bots. I want to go, okay, so we get this question a lot. How do we force a user who has gone off topic back on topic? And this is actually a trick question, because bots are built by humans to serve humans and not the other way around. So really good bots need to take into account what the user is saying. Oh yeah, I don't have an emoji problem, but it do have a formatting problem. Take into account and update based on what people are saying, because every interaction with your chatbot is essentially a piece of user feedback on how bots want to interact, or how people want to interact with your brand. We can skip that. So the Yamato transport example, once we're live, we have to run unit tests and regression tests every single time that we make an update. And these are actually updated every single week based on the new and incoming data that we're getting. So it's a kind of a never-ending process. Basically, we also have bots that are in the network, in the Yamato transport example, that are tracking conversions in real time and will log and store the conversion in a database. So every time we successfully tell someone where their package is or create a conversion, it is stored, so we're able to check and measure for any abnormalities in terms of the number of turns in a conversation it takes to convert a user. 100 million messages a day is actually 60 gigabytes of log data. So there's no way that a human can possibly go through all of that, and this is where machine learning is actually effective as a problem solver. So we've trained custom models to flag user sentiment and, as I mentioned earlier, abnormal conversion numbers, so that we can actually surface those bad interactions to human users. That said, it still takes about 3 human resources working 2 days a week to make updates. That's why the modular architecture is so critical. We can have multiple people working in a team on the bot, writing new test cases before release. So I think a big headline here is actually augmentation, and humans will always be in the loop in these cases because people are constantly saying new things to the bot, we're adding new features, and in fact, new words actually enter the language at a pretty fast rate, so the work is never fully going to be done. All of that said, we're still, I think, many, many years away from natural language understanding being a completely solved problem. So there is a long way to go, and I think when we get there, if we get there, we will probably have achieved true artificial general intelligence. So just a quick recap on the steps to build your 100 million message a day bot. You need to first identify that conversation is the right problem for your use case. You need to properly resource the team. You need to design the conversation, leveraging the fact that this is a new paradigm, but not for too long. Don't launch after a year of work, because you will be surprised, shocked, and appalled that what people are saying are different than whatever data you put into your big data blender. Make sure you integrate with back-end systems so that you're actually accomplishing things with real-time information and getting real work done. The bot is really just the tip of the iceberg in a conversational UI layer on top of a lot of existing services. Make sure you build your test cases and are ready to iteratively run regression tests and update them, and know how you will measure success and be prepared to build in those measurements into the development cycle. Don't forget basic marketing rules. And finally, never stop working, because the work is never done. Any questions? I had to skip some slides for time, but please come find me later, and thank you so much.
Apart from the fact that I need to go to the International School of Pronunciation, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along this afternoon. I think that was an awesome group of people to listen to today. I'd just like to ask you now to show your appreciation, and thank you very much.